please again keep this between us. I'm talking to you as a friend at this point more than anything. I don't talk to him like I talk to you. So I was talking to Ryan and I was like, I don't know if we should share this, but he was like, you guys have such a great trust.
That voice memo you just heard? That's Blake Lively talking to Justin Baldoni before they started filming. Listen to her tone. Listen to how comfortable she is. How freely she shares details about her body, her marriage, her stress, her kids. That is not a woman who feels unsafe. That is a woman who feels very, very safe. And that's the problem with her entire case. Because later, Blake Lively will say she felt threatened by this man, silenced, coerced, and manipulated. But these early messages tell a completely different story. In this voice memo, she's venting about not having a nanny, talking about wanting to work out after having a baby, explaining that she and Ryan have never spent more than 2 weeks apart, walking Justin through her daughter's school schedule and their family trip to London. None of that is guarded. None of it is professional. She's treating him like a confidant. And all of that emotional sharing is wrapped around one specific request. She wants the shooting schedule changed. But she doesn't just ask, she builds a case, layers excuse on top of excuse until the request feels inevitable, and then she makes sure he knows she's not alone in this. She brings up Ryan, Taylor Swift, Sean Levy, tells Justin these are the people she runs every creative decision by. They agree with her, they're watching. She never says do what I want or else. She does something smarter. She makes it sound like what she wants is already endorsed by the most powerful people in Hollywood. Like disagreeing with her would mean disagreeing with all of them. This is not fear language. This is leverage language. And then she goes further. In later messages, she compares herself to Daenerys Targaryen from Game of Thrones. Tells Justin she has dragons. Says those dragons protect the people she fights for, and he'll benefit from them too. She is telling the director of the movie that she has powerful forces behind her, and framing it as a gift he should be grateful for. That is not a woman being intimidated. That is a woman doing the intimidating. And while she's sending Justin these cozy voice memos about how she doesn't talk to anyone else like this, and how Ryan thinks they have such great trust, you know what she's doing at the same time? Texting Taylor Swift, calling him a doofus, and a clown who thinks he's a writer now. Asking Taylor to ambush him at her apartment and pressure him into using her script rewrites. This isn't someone building a friendship. This is someone running a con. She's love-bombing him to his face while building a coalition against him behind his back. Remember, she is doing all of these two-faced things before any alleged harassment, before any conflict on set, before anything went wrong. She was already positioning him as the mark. That's not a woman who got hurt and spoke up. That's a woman who had a plan from day one. Meanwhile, Justin's responses are boring. He thanks her, says he appreciates her passion, talks about being excited to collaborate. He sounds like exactly what he was, a less powerful director trying to keep the peace with a much bigger star. So here's what the early record actually shows. Blake initiating emotional intimacy. Blake requesting production changes. Blake invoking powerful allies. Blake comparing herself to a dragon queen and calling her famous friends her weapons. And Justin being polite, agreeable, and accommodating. That's the before picture. Now here's the after. Later, Blake says she felt unsafe on set, that she was silenced and manipulated, that she was the victim of a coordinated campaign to destroy her reputation. But here's what's missing: the middle. Now, some people will say that's how it works. Victims don't always speak up in the moment. They freeze. They stay quiet. They don't document abuse while it's happening. And that's true sometimes. But that argument falls apart when you look at what Blake was doing during this production. She wasn't quiet. She wasn't frozen. She was texting constantly, demanding script changes, fighting for producer credit, looping in lawyers, and complaining to Ryan and Taylor about how her contributions weren't being recognized. She had no problem advocating for herself when it came to creative control. No problem pushing back when she felt overlooked. No problem documenting every grievance about the production in writing. But on the topic of harassment? On the topic of feeling unsafe? Nothing. Not one message saying this is making me uncomfortable, not one text to the producers she was constantly in contact with. And here's what really doesn't add up. Ryan Reynolds is supposedly her most trusted partner, the guy she runs every creative decision by, the guy she can't stand to be away from for 2 weeks, the guy she's texting constantly throughout this production. She did text people about problems during filming. She told a journalist she came home and cried. She texted a friend that it was HR nuts today. She told Jenny Slate she saw a vibe in Justin she wasn't into. But look at the language: vibes, feelings, vague complaints. Where's the text that says Justin said something sexual to me today? Where's the message to Ryan describing specific inappropriate behavior? Where is any communication that names what was actually happening? It doesn't exist. She documented her frustrations in real time. She just never documented harassment. Even in her own meeting with producers, she called the issues HR claims, not sexual harassment. That's her own word choice. Under no pressure, in the moment. The specifics only showed up later, when the lawsuit got filed. That's the gap. Not silence, selective vagueness. She had no problem complaining. She just never complained about what she's now suing over. There is just a before version of Blake Lively who is confident, demanding, and fully in control, and an after version who is frightened and victimized. Same man, same relationship, two completely opposite descriptions, and no explanation for how one became the other. That's not proof that nothing happened. Something could have occurred that isn't in these messages. But when you're building a legal case around the claim that you were mistreated, the timeline has to make sense. You cannot be comfortable enough to share personal details about your marriage and simultaneously too afraid to speak up about misconduct. You cannot call someone a trusted friend in March and a dangerous predator in December without showing what changed. You cannot position yourself as the one with the dragons and then claim you were powerless. The math doesn't add up. These voice memos matter because they show who had the power and who was using it. They show a woman who expected to get her way, who expected that her fame and connections would give her control over this production. And when that didn't fully work, the story changed. The Dragon Queen became the damsel. That's not evidence of abuse. That's evidence of strategy. Because credibility lives and dies on consistency, and Blake Lively's story does not line up with itself. There's a chapter missing, the most important chapter, the one that explains how we got from point A to point B. And until that chapter appears, the timeline speaks for itself.
That's my opinion!